are live.
Good afternoon and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Audit, Finance and Risk Committee of the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, which is being live streamed on YouTube. In addition to the participating board members and the leadership team, I'm pleased to welcome our virtual audience and thank you for joining us. I would like to recognize that Monday, November 25th was International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And tomorrow, November 29th, is the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. The month of November is Albanian, Hindu, and Lebanese Heritage Month. I want to thank Grant, Vince, and their teams for the preparation of the materials brought forward for today's meeting. We have no deputations today, and in the public session, we will be focusing on 2025 budget update, current year Q3 October financial results, Q3 and October financial results, 2024 audit engagement and audit timeline, and an update on the proposed enterprise risk management framework. In the closed session, we'll discuss Q3 reconciliation of accounts with TSHC and further details of the proposed 2025 budget. Let us begin with the land and African ancestral acknowledgement. Though we may be meeting virtually in different locations, as a committee of a City of Toronto Corporation, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. The committee acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. Next is item number 3. That's approval of today's public meeting agenda. Are there any amendments? Hearing none, may I now have a motion for approval of the public agenda by a member of this committee?
I move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Warren. I need a seconder. Fareed, will you second, please? Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Next item is declaration of conflict of interest. Does any member have any conflict? Hearing none, let us move to the next item. That's item number 5. That's the approval of the public session minutes of this committee meeting held on October 2nd. I need a mover.
Mr. Chair, I move.
Thank you, Warren, and seconded by Fareed. Thank you, Fareed. All in favor? Carried. Next is item number 6. That's approval of the minutes of the closed sessions of the meeting held on October 2nd. I need a mover.
I move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Warren, and seconded by Fareed. All in favor? Thank you. Next, we'll move to item number 7. That's AFRC action items. Now, there are 2 items, but I would like to note that although those 2 items were outstanding on this list as at January 31st, 2024, after discussing with the TSHC staff, we have concluded that these items would be better suited at our TSHC Quality and Tenants Engagement Committee. These 2 items here, one of them was environmental renewal and plan. The second was revitalizations plans 2024. Anyone have any comments? Hearing none, we will move to item number 8. That's the CEO's update. Over to you, Tom.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and through the chair to the committee. First of all, on just a bit on the committee, work plans in 2025 meetings. As part of planning for 2025, we have been developing draft work plans for each of the three committees, and you probably have heard about those. And these have been discussed initially with the chairs of each committee, and will be brought forward to the first meeting of each committee that we have scheduled for 2025. And going forward, in addition to the recurring items, which we typically have financial results, budget, audit, reconciliation, financial updates, this will also now include new enterprise risk management reporting, and has been discussed with Lawrence. We may also want to add some further reporting on internal controls, and certainly we would plan to bring more to this to the AFRC in the new year. And then with regards to 2025 committee and board meeting schedule, this is planned to come forward to the December 16th, 2024 board meeting for approval. And just want to remind the members of this committee that the December 11th board meeting has been canceled. And I think that was announced earlier today. So one less meeting. And then just around cybersecurity, advising the committee that we have been in discussions with the TSHC to bring cybersecurity updates to our first board meeting in the new year, 2025. And this is a key priority item, as we know, certainly for the board, and really wanting to remain engaged in this work. And as a reminder, any specific cyber-related matters would generally be discussed in camera. Just wanting to kind of add that there because of the sensitivity of that area. And just finally on policies, update that the fraud prevention policy and the whistleblower protection policy are both planned to come to the next AFRC meeting in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions for Tom? Hearing none, let us move to item number 9. That's the 2025 budget update. Over to you, Vince. Vince, you're on mute, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the chair, I want to present to you the 2025 budget update as it relates to the public forum. As you're aware, we've submitted the budget back on September the 10th as a first draft. Since then, there's been some additional changes and adjustments from the leadership team, and including, in this case here, adjustment to the professional services and consultation, legal insurances, and also supplies and other minor adjustments. Along with that as well, there has been some refinements and adjustments from the city objective to essentially highlight the budgetary requirements as needed. And then there were other minor adjustments that has essentially minor or no significant impact to tenant-facing operations. In terms of the next step, right now we're close to the final decision from the city planning division. We're expecting to have a final decision sometime this week, although we are expecting, I would say, either today or tomorrow of a final decision. Last conversation we have, there's some few things that they're going through, so we're hoping to get that news soon. And essentially, the next conversation we will have would be brought up in the December board meeting, which in this case here, I believe there might have been some discussions about the date, but potentially the December 16th, we will include that, as long as the timing associated with the city budget decision has been included in the materials, is able to be included at that time. So that is the sort of the public information relating to the budget. We will have a session in camera to go through these numbers a little bit more in detail, if you have any other questions relating to that.
Any questions for Vince in the public session? We'll be discussing them in the closed session as well. Okay, hearing none, let us move
hand up, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. I couldn't quite see it on my screen. Just a quick question. We were asked to draft our budget separate from Toronto Community Housing. Will the two budgets be amalgamated at some point for final submission, or is it expected to still have a standalone component?
Thank you. And through the chair, this will be a separate budget submission. And so in the in-camera, you will also see a separate submission. We
Okay,
have been working with the city and also with TCC to ensure that the informations are split between the two organizations. Of course, there are some shared cost component with TCC,
right.
but it will be a separate budget submission with the separate budget notes.
Okay, thank you then.
Thank you, Vince. Again, next item is Q3 and October 2024 financial results. Once again, back to you, Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the financial result for the first 10 months of this year through October 31st of 2024, TSHC has incurred operating expenses of 37,754,104, and in total expenses on total revenue of 42,107,806 for an excess of $4.348 million. That's including the amortization expenses. The excess of revenue over expenses for the first 10 months included these major factors. One, the Q3 surplus arising from TSHC reconciliation of $9.375 million has been recorded. Also, other potential savings relating to professional services, insurances, and also office supplies have also been included. And the one, I guess, downside of all of this, of course, is on the higher than expected salary and benefit costs of $2.145 million, which included a number of these factors, including lower than expected health vacancy rate, paid out of unused vacation from prior year, adjustment to post-retirement renewal or accrual, hiring of additional frontline support, an extension of existing support for the deferred corporate positions, increase in the health benefits reserve, along with essentially higher than expected parental leave time, and other vacation usage, and also some salary band adjustments and contingency as well. Along with this, of course, there is also some savings, as discussed earlier, relating to professional services, legal services, in the tune of about $286,159, mainly due to timing of some of the expenditure. But we anticipate there would be a small savings, and on top of that, there's about a $322,000 in lower, at this point anyway, for the first 10 months in expenses relating to some of the major line item, including staff training and office supplies and office expenses, translation, and development and office related expenses as well. In terms of the attachment number 2, you will see in there in front of you the balance sheet accounts of TSHC as of October 31st, which included the cash component or cash balance at this point of $3.155 million, along with some accounts receivable, some amount due from TSHC, prepaid expenses, and some capital assets, along with some long-term due from TSHC, and of course some of the other accounts payable component relating to amount owing to payroll and payables, and then also due to TSHC as well. And on top of that, there's currently right now a surplus just due to that $4.3 million mentioned earlier, year-to-date surplus on the balance sheet account there. So definitely that's attachment number 2. If you have any questions there, I will take those questions now.
Yeah, thank you, Vince. Any questions for Vince?
Yeah, thanks. I'm through you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure this is the appropriate time to ask those questions, but I think this is more a generic question looking into the 2025 budget. I see that there has been some one-time expenses related to salary and benefits, Vince. I'm assuming that, for example, the amount that was paid out as part of the post-retirement accrual benefit, do we expect some of these costs to reoccur in 2025? And if so, have we made any provision for such increases in the upcoming budget? Thank you.
And through the chair, for the post-retirement benefits, this information, typically the information would reside, they would do an assessment around February of 2025. And so typically we would do a budget at the end of the very latest, around September, October of this current year. So there will always be some adjustments potentially, and some differences between what we budget versus what the actuarial work is done. So over time, on some years, at the end of this year, for example, 2024, they will relook at the usage, and of course, there might be some adjustments there. So it's a balance sheet entry, and certainly the adjustment will be made once we know what the actual rate will be. But to answer your point, Mr. Chair, there was always going to be some timing related and also some potential. Again, it's not an actual physical usage of it, but it is a bit more timing related.
Yeah, and then I guess the second question would be, I agree. I mean, I think these things are not necessarily a science, and it depends on uptake and a whole bunch of other factors. But I've got a couple of other questions, but I think they might be more suitable for a conversation during our in-camera session.
Great, thank you.
Brenda, you have any questions?
No, I'm fine. I'll leave it to the closed session.
Yeah,
you.
okay. Thank you. Next is item 11, 2024 audit engagement and audit timeline. Vince, back to you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as you, the information has been included on the package there in terms of the audit fees for 2024 fiscal year. It amounted to about $20,000, a slight increase from 2023 audit fees. Along with that as well, in terms of the timeline, the audit for the period will begin on February the 24th for about 2 weeks' time, with the expected completions of the audit report by March 21st of 2025. The interim work will begin on December 9th with KPMG, and the interim work will involve the first 9 months of this year. So they will start gathering most of that information starting in about 2 weeks' time. And yeah, so in terms of that, we're progressing along the way, and we will expect to have the final report and information ready by the second meeting of AFRC in early April. And the timing is still going according to plan at this point and progressing along that route.
Thank you, Vince. Any comments, questions for Vince?
Mr. Chair, just a very small question. Has there been any change in the partner in charge at KPMG for the audit?
That's a good question, Mr. Chair, and through the chair. There's been no change in terms of partner. Kevin Travers is still the partner. There is a change in the audit manager. I believe you might have met Rebecca last year, Rebecca Nuno. She has left the firm. So we do have a temporary person that is working there. The senior accountant will be coming back to assist, but in terms of the overall scope and partner, Kevin Travers is still the main person there. As you and I well know, this is the final year of the 5-year procurement of the audit fees and audit services. And the city is expected to go out to market for the next 5 years. Stay tuned for that. We don't know exactly what that entails at this point. There's been some conversations about some small extension, but at this point, it's just, again, nothing has been confirmed back from the city at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. If you don't have any further questions, now we'll go to item number 12. That's the Enterprise Risk Management Framework Update. Over to you, Grant.
Thank you, Lawrence. So through the chair, before the committee today is a report on a status update on the development of our Enterprise Risk Management Framework. At the last committee meeting, MNP, and we had a discussion around the Enterprise Risk Management Policy, which was ultimately moved forward to board and was approved in October. There is continuing work with MNP on the framework itself. So they've developed a framework draft document, which we are now working on reviewing internally. The framework draft material includes some more detailed aspects, including a toolkit around how to actually apply the enterprise risk management risk assessment, for example. So it includes risk assessment criteria, what's called a risk universe, a risk register, and a risk dashboard. These are all things that we'll be bringing forward with the framework to the next AFRC meeting in January. I'll just mention that as well, we've been working on development with MMP's guidance of this risk register, which is a more specific detailing out of the actual risks of the organization. This, if you recall, some of the committee and board members were involved in interviews with MMP as well as other stakeholders. Those have been inputs into the development of the risk register. The leadership team actually met with MMP last week to go through the draft of the risk register and provide some input and feedback on that. And we are meeting with them again in January to work through follow-up on risk mitigation aspects associated with that risk register. This will all be coming forward as a package for the next AFRC meeting in January, together with the first risk dashboard as well. So with that, I just wanted to provide a brief update that we are making progress on that project, and we're looking forward to coming back with more details in these areas in the January meeting. I'll take any questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Grant. If there are no more questions, I think it's time for us to move into a closed session. We will be coming back to the public session after the closed session. I need a mover and a seconder for a motion to transfer into closed session.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Seconded by Brenda. Would you like to second? Seconded by Brenda. All in favor?
Yeah.
Carried. Thank you.